is the UTV network. And you with UTVI.
Hello and welcome to this festive week special of $1 Million Idea. This Diwali might not have the cheer of the last one, but nonetheless it is a time to shop. Shop for clothes, household stuff, gold and diamonds. Yes, diamonds have entered a shopping list over the last couple of years and many believe it's because of one man. Today on the show we profile the story of Mehul Choksi and Gitanjali gems.
I don't believe in stars. I believe in me.
Most people know me as an actor, but there are still some things that nobody knows about me.
Beautifully you. Beautifully influential.
Tune in to any channel and it's a heady mix of sparkling stars telling you that a diamond is forever.
Lamhe by D. Dimas.
Quite a change in a country where everyone believed that gold was the way to go. But changing times and one man have made the difference, it seems. That's why Mehul Choksi and his bevy of brands makes it to our list of the $1 Million Idea. Gitanjali Gems, the company Mehul inherited from his father, has been at the forefront of a new wave that commoditized diamond jewelry in the Indian retail market. But before we tell you more, it's good to look back and see how the swank new face of the company is so rooted in a deeply Indian tradition. Mehul comes from a family of diamond traders from a small town, Palanpur, in the Rajasthan-Gujarat border. You may not have heard of it, but anyone who has anything to do with diamonds in the world market will tell you that they have, because Indians, especially Palanpuri Jains, control a whopping 75% of the world diamond trade. But again, that's not why Gitanjali figures on this show. It does because its owner, Mehul Choksi, rewrote the way the traditional business was done by shifting focus to first the domestic market and then the business of brands and selling dreams.
सुनहरे लम्हों की सुबह.
Today, Gitanjali Gems has 9 big diamond brands under its umbrella. The brands transcend different price segments from the cheaper Jili to the high-end Gianti. Each brand has a big star endorsing and different messages around it. The company that Mehul inherited is worth 4,500 crore rupees today, and he has big global ambitions, having bought 2 big retail chains in the US. And even a collapsing stock market hasn't quite deterred the man. What's more, in the heady excitement of the last 3 years, Mehul has spread his wings wide. He has set up a diamond industry-focused special economic zone in Hyderabad and has plans for 6 more. He has moved beyond diamonds as well to the traditional gold jewelry and a whole host of designer wear.
Collection G at D. Dimas Gold.
But with challenging times and the world diamond cycle showing signs of a turn downwards, the years ahead look challenging for Mehul, raising the question, will the man who is described as a natty businessman with a vision be able to soar above the hurdles? And whether the promise of the great Indian bazaar will really hold out. Hi Mehul, great to have you around the festive season. I'm sure business must be booming. Of course, we'll get to that. I don't know whether it's really booming
right
this
customer
time.
here.
But let's start at the beginning. And we'll talk about your business, your expansion, the 9 brands that you own in the diamond space, etc. But I'm very curious, Mehul, why do Gujaratis and Rajasthanis from that belt around Palanpur control the world diamond trade?
Oh, it goes back nearly 4 decades back, in fact. In 1955, our forefathers started this business. It was a trading business then. It was like a watch and diamonds both. Diamonds were not being polished in India. Dutch and Belgium was basically in the polishing business. They used to own the diamonds. So they used to travel to Belgium. I think in the past there were a couple of families, like even my father was one, but otherwise it was like Jayam and Jembel. Kirtilal Mehta and Mafatlal, these people started this business trading into diamond. They saw that this was a lucrative business, and then they set up their brothers from 60s
So
to
the family
70s.
moved with
Yes, and it was a trading in the beginning, and finally they learned. We're very Indians are very curious about the things, and then they got the technology how to polish that. And 70s to 85, there was a boom of polishing all across India.
And now they control about 90% of world trade?
90% of the world's diamonds, in numbers or in carats, are polished in India. Value would be 70-75%.
But what is also interesting is the sheer hard work of the community and the vision of the community. What made them actually invest that kind of money and energy into it?
Well, at that time was, very interestingly, that in diamonds, when the Europeans were cutting them, 80% of the rough diamond, which would be considered as rejections, India started learning how to polish it. Otherwise, it would be considered as a completely bought category, they say, or rejection category, which was not polishable by them at all, because it will be intense labor there. So we brought those diamonds here, and we learned how to, it's a very technically very complex kind of a product, and we made a real nice sparkling polishing diamonds out of that. So that is the reason, yes.
To a lot of people around the world.
Yes, absolutely.
But your association with diamonds can be traced back quite a long way. You started out in 1970s.
77, yeah.
77, you were in college, you decided to give up college.
Correct.
And work. Did you always know that you'd be part of the family business?
Basically, diamonds, the way the nature was, I remember very well that when we were very young, every day the work would happen day and night. Even at home, they would be grading, because it's something to do with the security and all. So at my house, every day, probably the whole night, the grading of diamonds would happen, and we used to live with that, breathe with that. And whenever we could find one diamond, my father would give us about $10 or $15 for it. So we always knew that there is something about it that we can earn money out of this, little pocket money. So that was always an attractive thing. When I entered the business, I remember very well that 77, I was studying in the morning, and we used to go to Belgium quite often at that time. So it was very interesting, and my father let me play. Immediately once I got into the business, right away while I was studying, okay, if you're interested, you can start trading, and we would trading a little bit smaller.
What is it like trading in diamonds? Is it fun? Is it exciting for
a
youngster
to actually go to I'm sure that any youngster who is starting up is going to love if they've been given that, okay, you can play around with a little money and you can do. And that was a very booming period at that particular time. The real boom started in the past around 80s. When the oil went up in 81 and the silver went up, it was a great bonanza. And that made me jump. But after boom, came the doom. And that made us...
Bad was it?
It was very bad.
Everything
fell down. You remember the Hunt brothers' time?
Absolutely.
And it was for the 4 or 5 years. 81 to 86, 87.
Are we in a boom, or are we headed for a doom with the stock markets?
Come on, I'm sure that nobody's going to say that we are going for a boom. But I'm sure that next year is going to be quite challenging one.
In what sense? Prices are going to come off, sales are going to come off?
The nature of diamond business today is such that it's highly leveraged. India gives credit to the world's richest nations. And the credit itself is very scarce. So I personally feel that is going to pull down the diamonds in particular. We do not have an excess stockpile of diamonds as such. I personally feel this could affect in the near term for 3 to 6 months quite badly.
Right. 3 to 6 months is not too long, thankfully. But when in this journey did you become from a diamond trader to a diamond brand man, thinking about opening it up, making it into a premier brand where you obviously have a higher valuation?
If I remember, I started my career with trading. Then, I jumped to manufacturing, which was, we could not, in the doom time, we could not we could not sell our diamonds. So I went into polishing. Then came the modern time that, we got the modern people. I have a Dutch man looking after my factories and the whole modernization of the factories. And then we started off in 1990s a jewelry factory to export in once the ships came in. And we started with Continental Jewelers. It was one of the largest jewelry firm from Hong Kong who was delivering. So we learned the technology how to produce in mass. in a casting jewelry technology. So every company there just started learning. It was the first time. Otherwise, jewelry was always handmade in India. And we learned this casting technology in 1990s. And then the Gold Control Act was lifted in India. And that was a time that I decided, we were always going abroad and seeing the department store and everything. At that time, we started thinking that why can't we sell the jewelry in a department store?
It was a jewelry that you started.
Yes. I started with Akbar Ali's, I remember very well. And, they didn't even know how to handle jewelry. And there were challenges where to keep the jewelry and how to sell the jewelry.
Did you ever think that it would be such a success
the
at
first
that time?
couple of years,
what was the biggest challenge in that beginning era?
The first couple of years, if I remember, it was rather 1 crore rupees sale or 2 crore rupees sale into convincing the time after Akbar Ali's was Stop, and then there were others. So that time we started with a department store. And in 1997, I remember very well that there was Valentine. And this Valentine, in India, Valentine was never celebrated. And we celebrated with a huge campaign with Jilly. And it was tremendous success. There was a queue of people. It was, I remember very well, it was a red rose, which was the box, and there was a jilly inside, and then this was so successful, that it caught up.
So was that the turning point for you?
It was a turning point, yes. 1997
was that also a time when you decided that this could be a market to
Yes,
look
absolutely,
into?
absolutely.
But I want to talk to you about this. I want to talk to you about the last 3 years, Mehul, because you saw tremendous expansion. And there is a fear that after that kind of expansion, you need a market that is rock solid to take it to the next level. We'll head into a short break, but we'll come back and talk about that. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching The $1 Million Idea, and part of the festive cheer, we've thought we'll get you the story of Gitanjali Gems with Mehul Choksi. And of course, as you can see, there's a lot of jewelry around me, unaffordable for me at least. But Mehul, this is part of your Gianti range, which is a top end. So it's from Jilly to Gianti, from the affordable, about 3,000, 4,000 rupee average price, to about what is the average price of these?
Yeah, this can go up to 20 lakhs rupees too.
Yeah.
Basically, it's as we grow, we always felt that there's a desire that every woman, whether
aspires to something more,
yes,
right?
and no more than that is that we should fulfill all the desires of the woman here. So now we have gone recently even into steel jewelry, which can sell for 500 rupees, to maybe something which we have made is also artifacts of diamonds, chandelier of diamond.
Yeah, we're going to get carried away with all this diamond talk. So let's get back to business, Mehul. The fact is that we left the last segment where you spoke about how you discovered the idea of brands. But in the last 3 years, ever since you took the company public, raised money, etc., you've expanded exponentially in terms of the number of outlets, in terms of franchisee networks, and this. Where does it go from here in a difficult market, really? Because everybody's talking about a slowdown these days.
See, one thing good about jewelry is in many countries, and particularly in India, jewelry is not really luxury. It is quite kind of a necessity. It's like, even the middle class people's savings probably, or even if you want your daughter, that in many of the shops in this country, they have an gold accumulation plan that, even for 1,500 rupees, every month you give 100 rupees to them, and at the end of 15 months you get little gold out of that.
But that might be true for gold, but for diamonds, because gold is, again, there's always a feeling that you can sell.
Well, if
gold,
I tell you, we need to be very honest, originally it used to be gold, the tradition that, you possess gold. But since, we have made diamonds so famous over the last many years and taught to customer that diamond also has an great investment value. If I teach you, really, it's very easy for you to price any kind of diamond just looking at the book, as far as you know that what quality of diamond it is. So
why 9 brands, Mehul? Why 9 brands of diamonds? Aren't they competing with each other?
see, each of these brands have, you know, a different, totally different story. If you see Ashmi, you know, it talks about Kajol and it's me, myself. It's a woman's personality and something that she wants to celebrate for her success, whether it's a birth of a child or whether it's a graduation. At that time, she's a filling, you know. So basically, the stories of all the brands are led by either by a product or by a particular.
It's a smart marketing strategy.
Yes,
you're giving a human emotion to each of these diamonds, but at the end of the day, they are competing with each other because there are lots of overlaps in terms of pricing.
Well, I would say overlap of styling, overlap of this thing, it happens a little bit. But most of this, you know, if you take Nakshatra, even you will be educated. Nakshatra has a flower and the 7-stone, you know, a very old kula jodi, what you used to call in India, which is very much worn by the Indian woman. Even, in fact, there's that particular jewelry, Nakshatra, if you really think, you know, it was so old-fashioned, right? But we brought this, the Nakshatra brand, it brought it back to youngsters. And today I see any young woman wearing that particular piece in a different and modern way.
Mehul, a lot of the growth for your company, like many other companies, happened in the last 3 years. The stock markets were doing well. You could raise a lot of money. You could make sure you had investments and expansion plans ready. What does a slump mean in that respect?
Well, certainly, you know, that there were very, very fancy plans or something. They certainly will consolidate for a while and we'll look at that how the things unfold because, you know, finance was quite taken for granted. So the plans may be many, you know, but we would consolidate at this moment and look at, you know, where we are really great strength. But particularly our group has been really focusing on jewelry only. We haven't really diversified into unrelated projects or something. For us, it is not so difficult.
But you had big plans on SEZs, for instance. You
SEZs
had bought
again,
land. You've got one in Hyderabad off the ground. What about the rest? What about the investments you've made?
Well, we will be a little slower there, you know, and we will be able to deliver because the particular plans were to move from Bombay to Hyderabad. All this thing will happen. It's not going to really affect all this thing. In fact, my Hyderabad plant has nearly 3,000 workers already. And we can consume ourselves 10, 15,000 workers quite easily. So it will be a slow process as far as many of the special economic zones are concerned or something. But still we'll be able to deliver according to whatever is required.
Mehul, a downturn also means cutting back on costs, cutting back on advertising. You've got some of the biggest stars associated with your brands. Is that going to go or do you think the Indian retail story is still there?
No, Indian retail story is very much there. In fact, the retail story is not really about expansion. It's also taking share from a traditional business as such. You know, because of new shopping experiences coming about, you know, every day there are so many different kind of, the whole business is getting organized. The brands come in there. You know, brands really expand. You know, if you go to a mall, nowadays what's happening that out of 8 shops, you know, all they need is branded. Maybe one will be Tanishq. The other one would be possibly a regional player, and other 5 shops you'll find each of my brands.
Right. Well, we'll look at the journey and what it has meant for you, but we'll head into a short break. We'll come back and talk about where Gitanjali goes from here and what the next couple of challenges are. Stay tuned.